If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to surround yourself with people who are very ambitious and you have to be in the right ecosystem. And in India, that's clearly in Bangalore.
I think this program is designed for individuals who are not afraid to try, who are confident, who want to take a bet on themselves. These are individuals who will become founders at some point of time. They have that, what we call as the Kida. Let's say I want to build a new best-in-class IKEA for India. Then what is stopping you?
Your ability to sell, convince, inspire people is very, very important. And in a founder's journey where there is so much to be built, you have to inspire people with your vision. You spoke about the startup which has come out of Mesa. That is so inspiring to hear. If there are so many more startups which come out right from school, that would be an amazing place to be. So therefore, we are fully committed to making sure that Mesa becomes a big, big success.
Hi everybody. Today we are joined by Mukul Arora from Elevation Capital. Mukul is the co-head of Elevation Capital in India. Elevation Capital, as we all know, is one of the largest and most active venture capitalist firms in India, investing in startups. Over time, they've invested in some of the biggest startups we know, like Urban Company, Swiggy, Paytm, and 200 more. Thank you, Mukul, for joining us today. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Ankit. Great to be here with you.
Over time, we have talked a lot about why you invested in Mesa, why you invest in education and some of these very large sectors. I think I wanted to pick your brain for one more minute and ask you again, what is your philosophy and Elevation's philosophy when it comes to investing in sectors like education?
So Ankit, let me actually talk about our philosophy when we invest in startups in general, and then I'll double click on education a little bit because both are related. So when we are investing in startups, what we are looking for is that if this company becomes successful, can it be a generational company? Can it lead to a world which will be very different versus a world when this startup did not exist? And I'll take example of one of our portfolio companies, Swiggy, which you mentioned, since they went IPO recently. If you look at Swiggy, it's just a 10-year-old company. We invested in their seed round a decade back. Today, millions of customers order on Swiggy and Instamart. And as consumers also, if you look at our lives today, we can't imagine living without these apps. Equally importantly, they've created livelihood for hundreds of thousands of delivery people. They've created business for hundreds of thousands of restaurants. So that's the kind of impact they've had. And that's what gives us excitement and energy when we are investing in startups. And now if I sort of zoom into education also, we have seen one whole wave of companies which were trying to go after scale. And that did not work. And our view as we look at education today is to say, even in education 10-15 years out, what would a generation defining company look like, which will make life of students, life of companies who hire them very, very different and much better than what it is today. And for that to happen, they have to be very sharply focused on outcomes. So that's been our approach. We've been looking at companies which are focusing on delivering real outcomes to students. We also understand that journey will be very different, because if you have to deliver outcomes and not going after scale on day one, you have to be very methodical. It might be even a very slow journey to start with. Have fewer students, really commit to them, have a longer duration program. But we are quite confident that if we fast forward 8, 10, 15 years, that's the only way to build an institution in this space. So that's been our thesis as we have looked at the education space in India. So if we try and marry two things, one is education, and second, for us as VCs, our bread and butter is startup technology ecosystem. And what we are seeing today is India is at a very, very unique point where startup and tech ecosystem is hitting an inflection point. If I look at last 10-15 years, I've been in this industry, it's been a lot about building foundation for the startup ecosystem, whether we look at rails like payments, whether we look at identity, whether we look at now everyone connected on mobile phones, etc. Having said that, for us as a country, per capita income growth, GDP growth is going to really kick in over the next 10, 12, 15 years. And therefore, we feel that today, the opportunity to build a new business is like never before. Businesses are getting built much quicker and much faster than they've ever been. So we spoke about Swiggy and the scale they have built in 10 years. Even on a day-to-day basis, the deal flow that we are getting is multiplying every year. And not just in terms of quantity, but even the quality of ideas and teams that are coming to us. So we are at a very, very unique point where over the next 10, 15, 20 years, India will get completely reimagined by entrepreneurs and by technology. Now, as we sit in this unique point, there is also this realization that do we have the talent and skill skills needed for this revolution, which is ahead of us. And there is clearly a gap. People are obviously learning by doing, but are there educational institutes who are preparing them for this world? There is a big gap there. So when we met, if you remember, this is what was for me a big aha moment, saying that with Mesa, you are trying to do two things together. One, be very focused on impact versus saying, hey, we want to build a tech business and we want to chase scale from day one. And second, you wanted to go after this unique sort of inflection point we are at, that can we help young professionals, young students better prepared for this tech era and startup era. Also, if I look at it from the lens of lot of other portfolio companies, startups that we are investing in, for all of them, after first round of capital, first priority is building out their team. And that never stops. You have to keep hiring at different levels. And even though the startup ecosystem has become so much deeper over the last 10 years, talent availability is still a big challenge. And people hire for intrinsics, that, hey, let me hire someone who's very smart, very hardworking, has the right ethos, and we'll teach them the skills. And what we have the potential at Mesa to change, and what you are already changing, is saying that you are not only getting intrinsics, but also a lot of these very, very relevant skills on day one when you hire people. And that I can also see in from our first couple of cohorts. From our first cohort, few graduates have joined our portfolio company, and I can also see from their perspective the kind of value they are able to add, and they can hit the ground running from day one. So that is clearly a big sort of need in the ecosystem.
If you have to, let's say, from all of your experiences so far, working with so many founders, yourself and entrepreneurs, if you had to address today's 17, 18-year-old youngsters who are excited about building something, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Sure. See, I would say a few things. One, if we look at any of us, we are some total of 3, 4, 5 people we are closest to. And if you have the aspiration of building a business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to surround yourself with people who are very ambitious, and you have to be in the right ecosystem. And in India, in my mind, that's clearly in Bangalore. If you look at, you spoke about Stanford also, and if you look at the US, Silicon Valley still produces most of the large companies in the US and in the world. And in India, Bangalore is starting to take up that place. Personally, I moved from Gurgaon to Bangalore a few months back. And even though I used to be here twice a month, just being here on the ground has made such a big difference in being closer to the ecosystem. So that is definitely one in my mind. Second, if you want to be a builder, there is no better way to learn that versus building it yourself or building something yourself. So therefore, I would also encourage young students, young professionals to have a very high bias for action and actually take up a project and say, let me build it end to end. And let me not even use the word project. Look at it as building a company, that, hey, can I build a D2C brand of my own? Can I build a SaaS product of my own? And like you said, these days, it's so easy to build that if you have an interesting insight, that is there a tool or a software which some people might use, you can build it over 2-3 days. You can start marketing it with a very low budget and start receiving feedback. So show that bias for action, start building. And while doing that, you will also start to appreciate what some real-time challenges of building a business are. You might think, I have a great product. You start spending on marketing, but there are no takers. And then you listen to your customers and you try and understand what's going on. Why are they not buying? You incorporate that feedback, you iterate. So there is no better learning than actually going through that journey and pain yourself and starting to see revenue come out at the end of it. So I would highly encourage them to try and build something of their own which starts generating revenue. So these are couple of things that I would highly recommend young students or professionals who want to be entrepreneurs to focus on. At the same time, when you are a young founder and one is bottoms up skills and tools. Second is top down inspiration to say, how do you go about building a large business? And like you said, even for building a large business, day one, you have to break it to the smallest atomic unit and start testing that out.
But I think, are there other skills, Mukul, that you would encourage young individuals to build today so that they have a better shot at becoming either great founders or great leaders inside great startups?
Right. So see, few things I would highlight. I would say one of them is a skill, and second, in my mind, is a very core tenet on how you think about building a business. So on that first skill part, uh, your ability to sell, convince, inspire people is very, very important. And in a founder's journey where there is so much to be built, you have to inspire people with your vision, whether you are hiring, whether you are looking for a customer, whether you are looking to raise capital. So therefore that ability to sell, ability to communicate your passion, in my view, is very, very important. And there also people realize that everyone has a different style. So finding your unique style and then honing it is something which is very, very important. So that's the skill part. Having said that, there are two very, very foundational elements that I have seen which really differentiate between founders who build good companies and founders who build great generation defining companies. One of them is being customer backwards and being very, very obsessed about your customer. So for them, their mission for building that business is to improve lives of their customers. It's not to build wealth or create value, and therefore every decision starts from there. In fact, in one of our portfolio companies, Meesho, one of their values is listen or die. And when they mean listen or die, it means listen to your customers, be in touch with your customers, or you will die. So they put it in that level of black and white just to make sure every employee understands how important it is to be customer backwards. And what that leads to is sometimes very simple insights, which will become the foundation of your business. So that is one. Second, I won't call it a skill. I would say, again, a very fundamental tenet, which is very important for founders, is resilience. Because building a company is about facing failures again and again, learning from them, and then jumping back and fighting again the next day. So how do you have that resilience? And oftentimes, again, I've seen that it's the second, third, fourth iteration when suddenly founders are able to hit what we call product market fit, get traction, but 99% founders give up before that. So how do you build that resilience? So these are few things I would highlight, which are very, very important for someone to build a large enduring company.
And I know you and the entire Elevation team is super excited about working with the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. And I think a lot of young entrepreneurs are also emerging from Messa's community, right? And with this new UG program in business management and entrepreneurship, we expect a lot more young entrepreneurs to come. Thanks, Mukul, for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed the chat.
Likewise.